Your Lordship, Cleophas Oseso Tuka, Bishop of Nakuru Diocese, Very Reverend Professor Stephen Bugwangari, the Vice Chancellor of the Catholic University of Eastern Africa, Reverend Professor Lawrence Njoroge, our guest speaker, Dr. Mr. and Mrs. Charles Waihenya, our main fundraiser for today, Professor George Kimathi, the Acting Vice Chancellor, Academic Affairs and Research, Mr. James Beuli, the Special Advisor to the FISI, dear colleagues, all the staff of QUER, dear students and all invited guests, good afternoon. I stand here as the chairman of the Cardinal Otunga Scholarship Fund. On my own behalf and that of the other committee members, and before I continue, I want to make a request that all the committee members here present, please be upstanding. All the committee members. This is the team that has been working towards the organization of this day. We have with us Jerry Kangere, we have Dr. Miri Wainaina, we have Dr. Peris, Dr. Tekeste, Dr. Ann Kiboi, we also have Dr. Muchoki, we have Mr. Wakanywa, we have our chaplain, Dr. William, we have Dr. Luisa, and Professor Luisa, and we have Dr. Mbaro, and we have Miriam. I know there are a few others who are not here. Thank you so much. You may be seated. I am here to do two very simple tasks. Number one, I'm here to give a report of the Cardinal Otunga Scholarship Fund for the year 2022-2023. And then I'm also here to extend the committee's appreciation to you all for your generosity towards this noble cause. Last year, we raised Kenya shillings 1.2 million, 95,292. And there were other contributions that were received in the course of the year, because we know that it is supposed to be a continuous process. So consequently, the fund distributed to needy students amounted to 1,670,000. And this was done in two batches of 50 students for the September to December semester of the academic year 2022-2023. And another one of 59 students for the January to April semester of the academic year 2023 to 2024. These students were drawn both from the Langata and the Gaba campuses. And this report and even the list of beneficiaries, both are available for anyone who would wish to familiarize themselves with it. So this year, it is our intention to raise much more so that we can benefit more students, since we have so many needy students in our university. So I want to say a big thank you, because these contributions came from you. Kindly appreciate yourselves for this. I want to now take this chance to thank you so much for your continued support to the fund. Allow me to quote Mahatma Gandhi and say that the best way to find oneself is to lose oneself in the service of others. So let us feel good when we come to the plight of our needy students. At the end of the day, we say that benefactors do not necessarily have much. They just have the heart. And with such a heart, one does not stop giving. Once more, you give not because you have much, but because you have a special love that is imbued in you, a love for others, a love for the needy, a love for people who work hard, and a love for the lovers of God. May God bless you abundantly for your generosity. I now want to invite the Acting Vice Chancellor, Academic Affairs and Research, so that he may give us a short address, and thereafter I'll request him to invite the Special Advisor to the VC so that he can invite the VC for us. Thank you so much, and may God bless you.
Thank you very much. The organizer or the chair of the committee that was organizing this event, and the entire committee for the very good work that we have done. We don't take it for granted that we have spent time piecing together the activities of today and the methods in which we are going to be raising the funds. These funds are very crucial to our students that are struggling to go through university. Probably some of you did not struggle when they were going through their education, but some of us actually did struggle, and we depended on well-wishers, just like you now, to get through our education. And because we wouldn't want to spend a lot of time, I would want to say that we are grateful to be here, and we're most welcome to this occasion, and let us contribute very generously, so that we have time for the actual business. I'll now invite the SABC to say hi and just make maybe 2 statements. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Lordship, your first Professor Otunga, the Vice Chancellor, and all protocols observed. As you advised, my name is James Theory, and I have one simple task of inviting the Vice Chancellor to come and talk to us and give us a message and a word. But for me, it would be remiss if I also don't say, similar to my colleague, that the Cardinal Otunga Foundation, the scholarship fund that has been established here, has been of very significant help to the needy students. Through the chaplaincy, through the fund, we're able to support them where, in many respects, there is nowhere else to go. I must also admit that myself, I have been a beneficiary of scholarship, indirectly. In the 1950s, my father was one of the brightest students in Yale. And when he finished his exams, he had absolutely nothing but his grades to show for it, and no money. So a very single organization actually paid for his fees, paid for his training, paid for his further education, and with that he got a job, he got an income that then supported me to get where I am today. So I owe, just like many of you, the charity of others to where I am today. Now with that, I wish to call the Vice Chancellor, Professor Stephen Gary, to address the audience. Thank you very much.
Right Reverend Cleophas Otunga, Bishop of the Diocese of Nakuru, and our main celebrant today, Mrs. and Doctor, because they are both the doctors, I don't know how you address them. Charles Waihenya, the renal specialist at MP Shah Hospital. Reverend Professor Lawrence Joroge, Chaplain, Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, and our keynote speaker this morning. Mr. James Theory, Special Advisor to the Vice Chancellor in charge of Administration, Finance and Planning. Professor George Kimathi, Acting Deputy Vice Chancellor. Academic Affairs and Research. Reverend Dr. Stephen Bugwa Karanja, Chair, Cardinal Otunga Memorial Organizing Committee. Distinguished guests, we have the Equity Bank, among others, who are here, and we thank you very much for being with us. All deans, directors, and heads of departments, university faculty, staff, and students, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the Catholic University of Eastern Africa main campus, and thank you for joining us today as we celebrate the servant of God, Maurice Cardinal Otunga. Your Lordship, thank you for the wonderful sermon you shared with us during the Cardinal Otunga Memorial Mass earlier today, and thank you for joining us for the rest of today's function as our guest of honor. I would like to thank Reverend Professor Lawrence Njoroge for accepting to be the guest speaker in today's Cardinal Otunga Memorial Lecture. And I would also like to thank Dr. Charles Waihenya and Dr. and Mrs. Charles Waihenya for accepting to be the key fundraisers for today's Cardinal Otunga Scholarship Day. Your Lordship, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we are truly humbled by the fact that you have all joined us in celebrating one of our university's founding fathers and the first Chancellor of Koya. Koya launched the Cardinal Otunga Memorial Mass Lecture and Scholarship Fund program on 29 September 2005. Servant of God, Cardinal Otunga dedicated his life to the people of God. The Dictionary of African Christian Biography brought this out pretty well by stating that Cardinal Otunga is remembered most for his distinguished and humble leadership, which fostered phenomenal church growth, making the Roman Catholic Church the largest and the fastest growing church in the country. The church grew not just in its evangelization efforts, but also in the areas of education, health, and social welfare. We encouraged holistic development, which enabled the Roman Catholic Church to reach the community by establishing the best schools, hospitals, and colleges, among others. We, the Catholic University of Eastern Africa, benefited from his vision of the holistic development of a person by being the university that helped found the auspice of the Association of Member Episcopal Conference in Eastern Africa, AMASEA, which was endorsed for development as a theology institute in 1961 during the AMASEA meeting in Msabazi, Dar es Salaam, officially opened its doors in 1984 as the Catholic Higher Institute of Eastern Africa, chair, and was officially opened by St. John Paul II in August 1985. The initial land that the chair was built on was part of the St. Thomas Aquinas Seminary. Servant of God, Cardinal Otunga, donated the land to AMASEA for chair to be built in. The dream of a theology institute in the AMASEA region came to pass. However, the servant of God, Cardinal Otunga, still dreamt of the day chair would become a university. He led the team that extensively lobbied and negotiated with the government of Kenya to make chair a university. In 1992, chair was chartered by the government of Kenya and became the Catholic University of Eastern Africa, with the servant of God, Maurice Michael Cardinal Otunga, as its first chancellor. The servant of God believed that all should have access to education be they from well-to-do families or from poor and vulnerable families. That is why in 2005, in the memory of Cardinal Otunga, choir started a scholarship fund in his honor, and today marks the 19th year the choir has honored the servant of God through this scholarship fund. Many, including a good number of those here today, have had the privilege of experiencing the servant of God, Maurice Cardinal Otunga, in their lives. For choir, Cardinal Otunga was one of our forefathers, and we will never forget what he did for our university. My own testimony is that when he was very sick at Mater Hospital, I and another priest drove from Nakuru to come and see him. And when we chatted with him and it was time to leave, we said the prayers and then we asked him to bless us. I want to say that he came out of the bed, knelt, and asked us to pray for him and bless him. We were very humbled because as a cardinal and we were just a priest, it was quite a humbling experience. I ask that as we all reflect and share in the remembrance of servant of God, Maurice Cardinal Otunga, let us generously contribute to the Cardinal Otunga Scholarship Fund, which enables choir to cater for our needy students. By doing so, we will be leaving the legacy that the servant of God envisioned for all. My Lord Bishop, this legacy is not carried once per year. I want to say that our university has embraced it as a weekly event. Every Thursday we have Mass at midday for the whole choir community, and each Thursday, each faculty comes with their mategas, with their offerings, and those offerings are managed by the chaplaincy and the dean of students because they are given to the poor students. And I would like to tell you, Bishop and our chief guest and guests, that there is no student who comes to choir who goes without food. I think our president of the Students' Union is here and he can vouch for that. Every week they bring all foods, all the things that students need, and we share. So it is a weekly event at the Catholic University of Eastern Africa. I would like to say that a few months ago, I went to a government institution, and when we were driving in, the guard greeted me, "Good morning, our Vice Chancellor." And he happened to be one of our students. And I was so touched by him because he works from 6 to 6 in the evening to 6 in the morning. And with that, he is able to be in class by 8. And he never mentioned who he was. He never even applied for Cardinal Otunga. And he felt that by being so poor, he was not even worthy to do anything. So I called him and I paid for his tuition up to date. And last night I met another guard at 9:30 coming from the office. We had a meeting and he told me, "Father, I'm graduating, but I have over 20,000 left." And I told him, "Come to my office in the morning." And I paid for that student to graduate. And this is our daily experience and witness. And a lot of our staff also do that to the needy students because they meet them in class, in the social events of the university, and they understand and support them. So I'm just giving an example and a testimony of what we do. Once again, I thank you all for joining us today as we remember a great leader and a humble man of God. We know that what we get, we give, and we are starting a foundation for Cardinal Otunga. We would like to build even up to $50 million, or 50 million shillings. I was talking about dollars now. And what happens is that money would be invested, and the proceeds would also assist this cause, so that every year we can support more and more students that need our help. Because I remember the other day, one of the students who reported, he came with the slippers, and I think they were borrowed. Nothing else. The dean of students called me, we went and changared and bought him everything. And therefore, even the poorest of the poor want to come to the Catholic University of Eastern Africa. So we are going to work very hard, Your Lordship, to ensure that no student who needs to come to Kwela will not come, and we will support them as much as we can. So may God grant his servant Cardinal Otunga a share in the glory of heaven, which is promised to those who have served him. And may we who follow his charism also someday share in the glory of heaven together with him. With those remarks, I wish now to welcome my Lord Bishop, Bishop Cleophas Otuga, to give us a few words. We know he preaches, not looking at me kindly, but I know he'll say a few words. Karibu, my Lord Bishop.
The Vice Chancellor, our guest speaker, and the guest of honor for fundraiser, all guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Father Mbogwa caught me off guard. I thought I had finished my business, and mine was just to sit down and listen. And I don't want to take more time trying to think of what to say, but I think we have come for a better cause, to assist those who are in need. And I just want to share a story, and that will be all. That a chicken and a pig one day went to a church, and the preacher was talking about assisting the needy. And when Mass was over, the chicken made a suggestion to the pig and told the pig, "What can we offer?" And then the chicken said, "Why don't we each give something?" And the pig asked him, "What are you going to give?" The chicken said, "I'm going to give an egg." And then the pig was a little bit silent, and the chicken asked the pig, "What are you going to give?" And the chicken and the pig said, "For you, you're just going to give an egg. But for me, if I have to give the sausage, then I have to die." The little contributions we're making for the good of others is a sacrifice. If the pig was ever to give the sausage, it had to die. But for us, perhaps the little we give, we are not going to die, but we are going to keep this program continuing, because there are so many out there who need our help. So as we gather together to do this, act of kindness. Let us do it with love, for the sake of God and for the sake of the many who would want to access education but cannot because they do not have. I talked about the angel. The angel for these people is you and me. The little that we give for their education will live a long time in their memory. May God bless you, and I wish you a wonderful day.
Let us appreciate the Bishop, the Vice Chancellor, the two Deputy Vice Chancellors and the Chairman, and give them a big clap. My Lord Bishop, allow me to ride on the protocols that have already been established for this meeting in view of time, as I take this opportunity to usher us into the next session of the program. And as I do that, allow me to warmly welcome the Dean Faculty of Law, Senior Counsel, Ms. Njeri Kangede, who will introduce the speaker in today's memorial lecture under the theme, Promoting the Dignity of the Human Person, and also moderate the session. Let us appreciate her as she comes over.
My Lord Bishop, the Right Reverend Cleophas Tuka, is celebrating today, our host and the father of this university, the very Reverend Professor Stephen Bobu Agari, who is also our Rector and Vice Chancellor, our guests, chief guest, Waihenya, Doctors Waihenya and Waihenya, our guest speaker, who I'm about to introduce, the Reverend Professor Lawrence Njoroge. You will allow me to ride on all those protocols and welcome you, brothers and sisters in the Lord, to this grand occasion. My brief is short and very pleasant. I'm here to introduce the guest speaker, who is a person who needs no introduction in this university. I'm also here to moderate his lecture. Again, he's a brilliant speaker and there's nothing to moderate. And so that I will be redundant. Father Lawrence, I'll beg your indulgence to say one little thing before I introduce you properly. As you very well know, I'm Presbyterian of the Tukutendereza stock. I will walk in the light by making public confession. But I won't confess anything that will embarrass you. But I need to let you know that when the committee was tasked with looking for somebody to come, searching for somebody to come and speak on this occasion, we took this very seriously, and we were looking for four attributes: a woman or a man who knew the servant of God well enough to be able to speak from a point of authority and as a first person, an eyewitness, experiential life testimony of him. Two, we were looking for a woman or a man of the faith who knows the church so well that they'll be able to contextualize the life of the servant of God to the life of the church. Three, and a bit selfishly, we were looking for somebody who knows choir well and loves choir well enough to correct us in love if need be. Finally, and this may sound a little pretentious, we were looking for a woman or a man after the heart of God. And the reason, the rationale for this is simple. One, we are at that phase of our growth in this university where we have committed ourselves to doing life in a focused, intentional, strategic, value-adding, and God-honoring way. And this lecture, this event is so important in our lives that we were not prepared to make any mistake. And so we did the next best thing, because we are people of faith. We committed this to prayer, and we even put the fleece out. I'll not tell you what the fleece was, but when you do your memoirs, I'll do the tribute, and that's when I'll disclose what the fleece was out for you, Father Njoroge. And so therefore you are an answer to prayer, and you have, as a lawyer, I'll tell you have full local standing to speak to these people, and you have undisputed rights of audience to speak to this congregation. And now I'll do the formal thing and let you guys know who our speaker is. Father Lawrence Njoroge is Professor of Development Studies and Ethics at Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, JKUAT, where he has served as University Chaplain, the Roman Catholic Chaplain since 2002. After studies in philosophy and theology, as in Thomas Aquinas Seminary in Nairobi, he was ordained priest of the Archdiocese of Nairobi and served at the Holy Family Basilica as Education Secretary and Pro-Secretary to His Eminence, Maurice Cardinal Otunga. Then Archbishop of Nairobi. Later, he was appointed Administrative Secretary to Archbishop Mwananzeki's successor to Cardinal Otunga. Having received a diploma in philosophy and a baccalaureate in theology, both first-class honors, mark you, from the Propaganda Fide University, Rome, through St. Thomas Aquinas Seminary, Father Njoroge was enrolled at the University of Notre Dame, Indiana, where he received a Master's of Arts in Theology degree, first-class honors again. Further studies at Notre Dame and training at St. Mary's College, Notre Dame, earned him the PhD in ethics and a practicum in pedagogy. He taught at Notre Dame and was voted the winner of the Thomas Marden Award in 1992 by the freshman year class for his excellence in undergraduate instruction. A decade later, his alma mater invited him as a visiting associate professor to teach ethics and the freshman writing seminar from 2001 to 2002. Father Njoroge has served as chair of the Department of Education at the Catholic University of Eastern Africa, where he was one of the founders of that department in partnership with Professor Anselm Uba from Nigeria and Professor G. Benas at Kenyatta University. So Father Njoroge does not only know choir, but he also has institutional memory of our institution. At JKUAT, Professor Njoroge established the Department of Development Studies, serving as its first chairman. Later, he was appointed director of the School for Human Resource Development, SHRD. For 10 years, he contributed as a member of the Speech Writing Committee and served as chair of the same for a 5-year term. Father Njoroge has headed the Committee Against Drug and Substance Abuse. During his tenure, a policy document was developed, published, and launched. Presently, he chairs the university's National Cohesion and Values Committee. As the founding priest of St. Augustine's Parish and University Chaplaincy, Father Njoroge entered into a memorandum of understanding with JKUAT management. Archbishop Mwananzeki approved this arrangement. Students of architecture and engineering, supervised by their lecturers, provided technical services gratis for the construction of the parish house and church. In return, this afforded them a practicum in industrial attachment as students threw away from the university. This win-win strategy has seen the project completed successfully. Father Njoroge has rendered national service. In 2005, His Excellency President Mwai Kibaki appointed him member of the Public Universities Inspection Board. The following year, Professor Karega Mutahi, the then Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Higher Education, appointed Professor Njoroge member, National Strategy for University Education. Both task forces delivered on their mandate and submitted reports to their respective appointing authorities. Father Njoroge has served as visiting professor at various universities, including Quer from 2010 to 2011. Besides supervising students in undergraduate and graduate levels, he has been external examiner at Egerton University and Maurice International College. His research interests focus on the interactions of religion, education, and human progress in the developing world. A frequent contributor on the same Of the same motifs in local and global journals, he has published articles in Chicago Studies and the HarperCollins Encyclopedia of Catholicism. He has contributed a chapter in Global Perspectives on Gender and Sexuality in Education that was in 2017. He recently authored the official biography of Maurice Cardinal Otunga, We Couldn't Have Found a Better Person Indeed, which has been submitted to Rome for approval. In November 2022, Father Njoroge launched his book Beyond Century of Endeavor, A History of the Catholic Church in Kenya. This 528-page work is currently being reprinted. In November 2019, Dr. Hilgeman, the postulator of the cause of beatification and canonization of the servant of God, Maurice Cardinal Otunga, appointed Father Lawrence Njoroge as vice postulator of the said cause. The appointment was approved by His Eminence John Cardinal Njue, then Archbishop of Nairobi. Most Reverend Philip Anyolo, Metropolitan Archbishop of Nairobi, has confirmed the approval. So, congregation, behold the man, Father Lawrence Njoroge, and please join me in a round of applause as we welcome him to the podium to give us the oracle and tell us what says the Lord today for prayer. Thank you. Father Njoroge. Another applause would have another friend.
Your Lordship, Monsignor Kefas Oses Otuka, Bishop of the Catholic Diocese of Nakuru, the host, our beloved Rector, Vice Chancellor, the very Reverend Professor Stephen Bogwa Gary, thank you very much. Although I am in communications, I knew that there was something not quite right. Now, things have been put right. Baba Askofu Cleophas Oses Otuka, Bishop of the Catholic Diocese of Nakuru, our host, Rector Vice Chancellor, the very Reverend Stephen Bogwa Ngari, the Chief Officer, Dr. Charles Oyenya, and Dr. Oyenya too, Madam Oyenya, the Acting Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic Affairs, and Research, Professor George Kimani, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Administration, Finance and Planning, and Special Advisor to the VC, Mr. James Zeuri, Chair, the Otunga Memorial Mass and Annual Lecture and Fundraiser Steering Committee, the Reverend Dr. Stephen Bogwa Karanja. He and I belong to the same archdiocese. And they are invited guests, and I see quite a number of religious sisters and brothers and the Reverend Fathers, professors, principals, deans, directors of faculties, schools, centers and institutes, faculty, member, staff, and students. God is good all the time. Mungu ni mwema na kila wakati. Hebu nianze kusema kwamba I am very, very much at home to be here and very, very grateful to be here. Nimefurahi kuwa hapa. it is a great and singular honor to be invited to the Cardinal Otunga Memorial Lecture 2023, and I will be quick to explain the reason I use the words a great and singular honor at the very beginning of this memorial lecture. I had the honor of delivering the very first Cardinal Otunga Memorial Lecture at the Nairobi Serena the year 2005. And that 2 years after the death of the person, we now celebrate as a servant of God. Many people call him simply the SOG, servant of God. And it therefore seemed a little bit unusual that I should give another reflection 18 years down the line. After all, and if truth be told, there are very many other persons equally qualified and even better deserving of such a great honor. Why should the same person give a lecture on the great Cardinal Otunga twice? Before I respond to that question, let me first state that I owe a great debt of gratitude to the very Rev. Professor Stephen Mbugua Ngari, Vice Chancellor, where for this kind invite and for this signal honor. Father Mbugua, my being here is not something I take for granted. I was in this university exactly 30 years ago. After this, I am going to stop mentioning years. And that is, I am not only going to look old, I am going to look ancient. And I do not want to look ancient. But Professor Uba, Anselm Uba, and I founded the Department of Education here in the year 1993. Simple arithmetic, simple mathematics will tell you when that was. And then I returned here exactly 10 years ago as visiting professor at in the academic year 2010-2011 in the Faculty of Education, and I did supervise a number of PhD students. Therefore, I am not exactly a stranger here. But your invite, Father Mbugua, Professor Mbugua, is a great honor. Because for me, as I stand here, and you can look at me straight in the eye, it is simply homecoming. And it is wonderful to be here. I mentioned that to you during celebration of Holy Mass. That I was indeed glad to be celebrating the Eucharist here with this community, and in the context of commemorating and remembering the servant of God, Maurice Cardinal Otunga, and especially in the context of Holy Mass and the Eucharist. It cannot get better. I am very happy and delighted to be here. Context. It is true that this year we are reflecting on the same person, Maurice Cardinal Otunga, whom we celebrated in a memorial lecture in the year 2005. Most persons who form today's audience were not at the memorial lecture given at the Nairobi Serena 18 years ago. But I must say I have seen 1 or 2 or 3. Muchoki was there, Dr. Mushoki, and Mushoki is here. I have seen several that were there in the year Where is Ushoki? Is somewhere. Yeah, he is there. You are in the ceremony in the year 2005. There are others here. I would like to pick out more, but the eyes are not able to quite pick out everybody. But I know that there are several persons here who were in the Serena in the year 2005. And most of the persons who form today's audience were not at that memorial lecture. It is equally true that I am essentially the same person who delivered the address in the year 2005. But a lot of water has gone under the bridge since then. Let me mention very, very quickly some of the highlights in the last 18 years since that first memorial lecture. One, the Catholic University of Eastern Africa has marked the anniversary of the death of Cardinal Otunga virtually every year since the inaugural address, and even during the COVID-19 pandemic years. This is laudable. This is to be praised. And this university must be commended for its devotion to the memory of a wonderful founder, because Cardinal Otunga was a wonderful founder of this university. Cardinal Otunga was and is a wonderful mentor. He formed people. Many people are who they are because of the formation, because of the mentorship of the servant of God. And as has already been mentioned, he was the first chancellor of Quer. And therefore, it is laudable, it is praiseworthy to remember that kind of person. Two, the process of beatification and canonization officially started in the year 2009 with the widespread reputation of the holiness of Maurice Cardinal Otunga. When he died in the year 2003, and arrangements for his burial were being made, there were persons who wanted him to be declared a saint immediately. But the Catholic Church has its processes and its procedures. Therefore, the process officially began in the year 2009. His Eminence John Cardinal, then Archbishop of Nairobi, filed a petition to Rome, and he assumed the moral, spiritual, and financial responsibility for the entire process till its conclusion. 3. Maurice Cardinal Otunga assumed the title Servant of God in the year 2010. 4. The diocesan phase opened in November 2011, and it closed in the year 2013 with the sealing of the Acts of Inquiry. These documents were transmitted to the Vatican, and the Roman phase started. Do not worry about memorizing the years, because Baba Askofu has a copy of what I am reading, and Professor Varambo Guangari has a copy, and at his discretion, he is going to share with the community what I am saying at the present moment. But it was very, very important to detail what has been happening in the process of beatification and canonization. Between October and December 2013, the Acts of Inquiry were evaluated. Number 6, on the 14th of January 2014, the decree of validity of the work of the Diocesan Tribunal was issued. Number 7, the postulator started writing the positio. The positio is the document that is required for the servant of God to be elevated to the next level. And this document comprises the acts of the inquiry and 2, the official biography. 8. In April 2021, the official biography was completed and transmitted to Dr. Walderi Hilgerman, who was appointed a postulator after the passing on of Father Anthony Belagamba of the Consolata Institute, who was the first postulator. We delivered the official biography through the Nunciature, through the Nuncio, His Excellency Archbishop Van Meegen, and that document, the official biography, was transmitted and its reception was acknowledged. And later we received confirmation that it has been incorporated into the positio and that it will be presented along with the positio. 9. The Beatification Office in Nairobi has collected evidence of several reported miracles for transmission to the dicastery for the causes of saints in Rome. Baba Askofu Cleopas, some of the evidence we have been collecting is from your own diocese. We received permission, we have collected that information, it has been compiled, and it is in the process of transmission to Rome. A number of times I have been to Njoro together with the technical team and the doctors collecting that information. 10. Recently, 2 months ago to be precise, a word was sent to Archbishop Philip Anyolo, who is the petitioner now as the Archbishop of Nairobi, that the positio will be placed before the same dicastery for the discernment and voting on elevating the servant of God to the rank of venerable. Word came 2 months ago. And I am now completing this point. In our word, much has happened since the first memorial lecture. It is important to stress that countless numbers of faithful people, the Catholic faithful, and others, continue to visit the Resurrection Garden in Nairobi every day to pray at the resting place of the servant of God. Father Marino Giamma of the Consolata Institute, rector of the Resurrection Garden, reports that pilgrims from various African countries, including Ethiopia, Rwanda, Tanzania, Uganda, and other countries, have been visiting the place for recollection and retreats with the specific aim of praying at the burial place of Cardinal Otunga. To conclude this section, I accepted this invitation with gratitude and humility a second time because it provides us with a tremendous opportunity for reflection on what has happened since 2005 regarding Maurice Michael Cardinal Otunga's road to sainthood. Those who interacted with the servant of God, and Father Professor Bogwa has just given his witness. Those who met Cardinal Otunga, those who interacted with Cardinal Otunga know one thing, without a shadow of doubt, that recently, 20 years ago, because it is 20 years since he left us, a good and holy man lived among us. Those who knew him know that. There are many who did not have the fortune of meeting and interacting with that great man. This is a moment to hear witness, not only from me but from others. Father Mbogwa has given some witness. To hear and learn something about the life and values, and especially his values on human dignity. As the well-known authors Margaret Ogola and Margaret Roach have written in this book, Maurice Cardinal Otunga is indeed a gift of grace. And I would like to mention very, very quickly, this book, initially written in the year 1999, reissued in the year 2007, has just been published. Therefore, there is the 2023 edition. I have not been asked to do any ad for it. It is going for and I have not written it. It is going for 500 shillings, and I know that it is going very, very fast. It is an excellent book on the servant of God. And these are some of the reasons I accepted this invitation to pray and reflect along with you on the promotion of the dignity of the human person, the Cardinal Otunga perspective. Point number 4. Maurice Cardinal Otunga, his own self-understanding. In order to interrogate how the servant of God viewed the important subject of the dignity of the human person, let us first of all examine briefly the manner in which Maurice Cardinal Otunga understood himself. I myself had the fortune of knowing Archbishop Otunga since the year, I am afraid to mention it, 1970, when I first entered the Syria Seminary across the road. Archbishop Otunga was then coadjutor to Archbishop J.J. McCarthy. And the seminarians of the Archdiocese of Nairobi were handed over to him by Archbishop McCarthy, the outgoing Irish missionary. It was Archbishop Otunga who received and addressed us as seminarians of the Archdiocese of Nairobi in the residence of the Archbishop, then located at the present Archbishop J.J. McCarthy Center, Riverside, Nairobi. That was where the Archbishop of Nairobi then lived. In total, I knew Cardinal Otunga fairly well for 33 years. I served as his education secretary in the year 1981-1982, and I served as his pro-secretary. I was not his full secretary. The full secretary was Father Francis Gashunga, who taught in this university, the late Father Gashunga. When he was not present, then I would serve as the pro-secretary. And for me, this was an unfolding encounter with that great person. Maurice Cardinal Otunga took a great pride in his origins, his human origins. When his last will and testament was opened upon his death in the year 2003, his successor, Archbishop R.S.G. Kimwana Nzeki, asked that I open and read the will in the gathering of the members of the Otunga family and representatives from the Archdiocese of Nairobi. The first paragraph of the will of Cardinal Otunga, and I am not revealing any secret here, because part of the will was made public. The first paragraph in the will, the first thing he said was he made a profession of faith And he cited the Apostles' Creed fully, the way it is. He wrote it in his will. And that was the first element. He said, this is what I believe in. Number 2, Cardinal Otunga then thanked God for creating him and for his vocation to serve in the Catholic Church as a priest, as a bishop, and as a cardinal for many years. And then he proceeded to thank God for his family, and I am going to quote directly from his will. It said, I thank God the Father for my beloved Bahone clan. And the Bahone clan is one of the clans of the Babukusu people. And it is clear from both his words and actions that Cardinal Otunga took a great pride in his specific human origins, and he had no apologies to make for having been born into a specific family, or clan, or ethnic group, or race. His favorite photograph, and quite a number of people here know that, and he placed it on his desk, on his work desk, was that of himself, and his father on the one side, Paramount Chief Sudi Namachanja, and his mother, Rosa Namisi, on the other side. And this picture was taken on the day that he was consecrated the first Catholic bishop in Kenya by Archbishop James Ronald Knox at Mukumu Seminary, Kakamega grounds, and he was consecrated bishop on the 25th of February 1957. That photograph is available at the Maurice Cardinal Otunga Memorial Hall in the Resurrection Garden. And I am now concluding this section. Cardinal Otunga always carried 2 copies of documents with him whenever he went. A copy of his Kenyan identity card, because he was very, very proud of being a Kenyan citizen. And in case, although everybody knew Cardinal Otunga, just in case he needed to prove that he was a Kenyan citizen, he carried with him a photocopy of his Kenyan identity card. And the other document he always carried with him was a copy of his baptismal card. He was baptized in the year 1935 in St. Mary's Parish, Kibabi. He was 12 years old. When I was writing the official biography, I went to that parish and collected those documents, and especially his baptismal card. I have it with me. Baptized by Father Puelak in September 1935. And that is also recorded here. I am not saying anything that is not in the public domain. He always carried that document with him. Therefore, and why did he carry a copy of his baptismal card? He explained to the writers of this book, because he was very, very proud of being a child of God, because by baptism we become child of God and a child of the Catholic Church. Therefore, he was a Kenyan citizen, the Kenyan ID. And the baptismal card, a child of God and a child of the Catholic Church. Point number 5, Cardinal Otunga and the Catholic Church. And I am going to move much faster. I am getting aware of the time. Firmly believing himself to be a child of God and of the Church, Maurice Cardinal Otunga was devoted to and loved the Catholic Church deeply. His pastoral options were always inspired and guided by the teaching of the Catholic Church. as is evident from the official records of the Catholic hierarchy, which you can Google. You simply Google and that information will come up. The SOG was a priest for 52.9 years, a bishop for 46 years, and a cardinal for 30.5 years. He participated in sessions 1 and 2 of the Second Vatican Council, and he is recorded as a council father. He participated in the election of Pope John Paul I and Pope John Paul II in 1978, a year which is memorably called the Year of Three Popes. As eloquently stated by his successor, Archbishop Mwana Anzaki, the SOG was firmly rooted in the theological virtues. It will be helpful to cite this aspect of Cardinal Otunga's legacy. And I quote Archbishop Dingi. And I am quoting from Archbishop Dingi's foreword to this book. Trusting fully in God, he emerged as one who lives in the hope that all will be well so long as prudent choices are made and the right action executed. In philosophical terms, the structure of a responsible human life is the knowledge, will, and right action sequence. In theological language, this is analogous to the three theological virtues: faith, hope, and love. Cardinal Otunga, Gift of Grace, page 10, number 6. Cardinal Otunga and the Cardinal Virtues. In his preaching and pastoral practice, it was evident that the SOG was guided by the classical cardinal virtues, which are prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance. An analysis of several key pastoral decisions he made indicates that he was acutely aware of the need for true faith and the right action in our Christian and human life. Cardinal Otunga was deeply influenced by the teaching of St. Pope John Paul II on the subject of human dignity and its promotion. The Holy Father, JP2, and Cardinal Otunga enjoyed a very close personal friendship. It will be recalled that John Paul II visited Kenya 3 times, 1980, 1985, 1995. And all visits were during the tenure of Cardinal Otunga as Archbishop of Nairobi. Cardinal Otunga's approach to the promotion of the dignity of the human person resonates with the teaching of Pope John Paul II on human dignity. Of these pontiffs' 14 encyclicals, Evangelium Vitae, issued on the Solemnity of the Annunciation, 1995, contains teachings that are mirrored or reflected in Cardinal Otunga's pastoral options that bear on human dignity. Some of the key ideas of Evangelium Vitae are the inviolable worth of the human person because of the incarnation, the inviolability of human life. We have a responsibility to our brothers and sisters' welfare, and that is what we are doing now during this function. You shall not kill. You must work for a new culture of human life. And now I am simply going to state the 3 things that brought me here and conclude this address. Cardinal Otunga's promotion of human dignity in the Archdiocese of Nairobi and in Kenya. Those who knew Cardinal Otunga remember him for several aspects in his legacy. One of the best known actions of the SOG was when he, together with Muslim clerics, burned boxes of condoms in Uhuru Park, Nairobi, in a pro-life march. This action was given wide coverage by national and international media. You can check the International Press Service, Nairobi, September 5, 1996. IPS, you Google it. That activity of Cardinal Otunga and others burning condoms is going to come up. But what point am I making? There are other less publicized pastoral options, pastoral choices that Cardinal Otunga took in the promotion of the human person. And this lecture is simply going to highlight three. One, when the servant of God took possession of the Archdiocese of Nairobi in 1971, specifically October 1971, Nairobi, which was then famously known as the city in the sun, it was already experiencing serious rural-urban migration and huge informal settlements, some people call them slums, were expanding not only to the east of the city, but also in the western suburbs, Kibera, and also in Nairobi South, and on the northern corridor, especially in the Mathare area. Cardinal Otunga made a pastoral intervention, and I quote, and this is one of the main things I would like to share with you. And the servant of God acted decisively in serving the marginalized in his archdiocese. Besides inviting the little sisters of the poor to open Nyumba ya Wazee, where he himself was to go later, home for the aged, he collaborated with St. Benedict's Church in Ruaraka, which was then headed by Father Klaus Braunreuter, a Benedictine, to source funding from Germany for upgrading the Mathare 4A informal settlement within the parish. He took a practical action in that regard. There was some controversy later about that, but he made an initiative regarding doing something about those who had been neglected in the city. Number two, Cardinal Otunga's archdiocese comprised not only the city of Nairobi, but it included, and it still includes, Kiambu County, which is largely rural, although it is becoming more urban and peri-urban. One of the biggest practical challenges he faced in his jurisdiction was the fate of the descendants of the farm workers in the Limuru farm in Kiambu County, a farm owned by the Archdiocese of Nairobi. Father Mbogwa, Stephen Mbogwa Karanja, and other people here know about it. That farm was purchased in the year 1902 by Bishop Filippo Pello of the Consolata Missionaries. And it was not grabbed by the Catholic Church, it was bought from Mzungu, from a colonialist known as Mr. Cooper. I have been able to get those documents. I have them in my possession. It was bought. And then people were brought from various parts of the country, and I have narrated that here. Persons were brought from various places in Kenya, and they became persons who later were referred as squatters, poor farmhands with little human dignity. Therefore, you have a farm owned by the church, but there are squatters, persons who are in an informal settlement. And I am concluding the second point. Cardinal Otunga made a decision Very, very few people know about it. And he implemented an action which few people know about. He quietly subdivided a part of that farm. And the former workers and the persons who had been squatters were allocated the plots of land, and title deeds were issued in their names. Father Otunga, who was a lecturer here, was then secretary to Cardinal Otunga. He is the one that represented Cardinal Otunga in the Limuru and Kiambu land boards. And the land was divided and the squatters were given their own land. Sister Hannah Oluguru was then working as secretary to Cardinal Otunga in those days. They know about it. And Cardinal Otunga did not want any publicity about that. Number 3, at the end of 1990, council bulldozers destroyed the homes of the Kibagare informal settlement that borders the Lavington neighborhood in the city's western suburbs. It was in this slum that Sister Martin Wanjiro of the Assumption Sisters of Nairobi had started a feeding program for persons abandoned in the city, and she founded a thriving learning institution that included formal education and provision of technical and trade skills. In tears, Sister Martin Wanjiro ran from Kibagare and she went to the Cardinal's residence to report the destruction of homes and livelihoods. The servant of God immediately accompanied her to Kibagare and witnessed the destruction. Local and international media reported the unfolding events, which again were given wide coverage in great detail. Jane Perez, who was then correspondent for the New York Times, covered the tragedy in these words. And I am quoting from the New York Times of December 2, 1990, page 14. And it is nothing unusual. If you Google Jane Perez, New York Times, the story is going to come up, both in archival form and in digital form. I am going to say it very quickly. This is what Jane Perez wrote in the New York Times. The story was covered by the Kenyan media and by the international media. And to be covered by the New York Times is quite something, because it means you have international exposure. Jane Perez wrote, "The usually reticent and rarely seen Roman Catholic Cardinal of Kenya visited Kibagare in the middle of the bulldozing last week." That was in 1990. You can imagine where you were in 1990. I know where I was. You visualize and see where you were. Cardinal Otunga was visibly shocked and called on the government to end the ruthlessness and violence. The statement by the Cardinal, which asked the government pointed questions, was described by church officials as the toughest in the Cardinal's 17-year-old tenure. He had become Cardinal in March 1973. Sister Martin Wanjiro of the Roman Catholic Diocese Social Services Center in Kibagare was trying to provide food and to those without, and to take care of people sleeping in the cold. Conclusion. Maurice Cardinal Otunga was a visionary. He was a modern prophet who saw beyond this world. This is precisely the reason he established the Resurrection Garden along River Park Road. This serene place of prayer is the servant of God's statement of his fundamental belief that human life has its meaning in our union with God, guaranteed by the resurrection of Jesus as the Christ. Maurice Cardinal Otunga promoted human dignity because he was a believer in one, the incarnation, two, the resurrection. This is precisely the reason he focused on the identity and dignity of humans. In the famous clip at the Holy Family Basilica, and you can Google that again, in that famous clip done by Archbishop Kevuva Musonde and Ukweli video, Cardinal Otunga, and I kindly Google it. It is wonderful. If you Google it, it is going to come up. Many people here have smartphones. It is going to come up. And you hear the servant of God saying, I am Bukusu. I cannot deny my identity. I am Mbukusu, to correct the Bukusu. God became human to make us sons and daughters of God. Therefore, no more violence. No more violence. The servant of God made these remarks during the time of the inter-ethnic clashes in 1982. Many people believed that the government of the day was not doing enough to stop these deadly conflicts. In fact, there were many who were convinced that the government officials incited some ethnic groups against the persons belonging to other communities, resulting in what sections of the media called tribal clashes. But Cardinal Otunga was involved also in defending human dignity in that very, very tragic situation. And I now conclude. At the highest point in the history of this country, the history of the Catholic Church in this country, is when the servant of God is declared saint. It is going to be a climax. It is going to be a kairos. It is going to be the greatest day in this country. And therefore, as we have been asked by the petitioner, Archbishop Philip Anyolo, let us pray fervently. Let us pray seriously. And that the servant of God is going to be elevated to venerable, that he is going to be elevated to blessed, and that eventually he is going to be canonized saint. When he wanted to appoint me his education secretary in the year 1981, I was not very eager for that job. Therefore, I explained to him, Your Eminence, my health is not very good. Why don't you look for a person who has good health a big, strong priest and appoint him education secretary. He listened to me, and then he thanked me for sharing that with him. I left his residence in Lavington and went back to the Holy Family Basilica. The following day, he sent his secretary, Father McBride, with a letter to deliver personally to me. It had only 3 sentences, and it read, "Dear Father Lawrence Njoroge, thank you for explaining to me yesterday about your bad health." Sentence number 2, I hereby appoint you Education Secretary of the Archdiocese of Nairobi. Sentence number 3, I am praying for your health. I have no doubt that he prayed for my health, and I have no doubt about one thing, that as you sit there and as I stand here this moment, I know one thing without a shadow of doubt, that the servant of God is praying for this university, the Catholic University of Eastern Africa. I have no doubt that he is praying for each and every one of us and for all we care for. I have not a doubt about that. He is watching over us at this moment. He is praying for each and every one of us. Hallelujah, hallelujah, amen. God bless you.
Please, let's make it better. Father Lawrence, you may take one of the seats here, kindly. And then we'll be guided by Council Jerry.
Please, could you give a round of applause to the man of God? Thank you so much, Father Lawrence. Audience, I am sure you agree with me that we couldn't have chosen a better person. And you can't say I did warn you. Now, because of not the constraints of time, but because of the depth of what has been shared here, and we fear we cannot give it justice, Father Lawrence, is it okay if you have questions to write them and send them to you, and then we can engage at another level with you? Thank you very much, but it's a take home from me. What a life indeed, and what do we learn as a Catholic university? The life of a great mentor, a gift of grace to humanity, a man who was comfortable in his own skin as a Bukusu elder, yet always conscious of his dual citizenship, as a citizen of the world and a citizen of heaven. We thank you so much. And because I'm the moderator, perhaps I can ask my question here. And if my Lord Bishop, I'm not Roman Catholic, so if I offend anyone, I'll come and confess quietly to you. Is there any way we can accelerate this Kairos moment when the man of God can be canonized?
Thank you very much indeed. As I have already mentioned, the Catholic Church has its procedures. And there is a document known as Mother of Saints, Mother of the Church, Mother of Saints, that describes the process that has to be followed in the making of saints. And there are many persons here in this university who are very familiar with that process. It is being taught here. Our responsibility at the present moment, and I am glad you asked that question, our responsibility is to pray at the present moment that the will of God be done. If we pray, and as Archbishop Anyoro has asked us, then the will of God is going to be done. Our responsibility is to pray and to pray seriously. in our situation in the small Christian communities, in our families, and there is a prayer for beatification. That is the official prayer. Therefore, that is one of the concrete actions. And even I was glad to hear the Father Vice Chancellor mention the very, very fact that in this university, and especially because Cardinal Otunga is at the very, very center of the foundation as a champion of the founders of this university, that he has always been remembered and is being remembered. And therefore, in our word, Jerry Kamele, let us pray and let us continue in fervent prayer. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. A final round of applause. Can I give the mic back to, where's my chair? Father Stephen Karanja. Oh, back to you. Yes.
Thank you so much. I think we want to appreciate our guest speaker for the wonderful presentation. Know that we appreciate everything because you know you had invested a lot of your time and energies to have that presentation done. Thank you so much. At this juncture, I want to invite the Vice Chancellor so that he can come and now introduce us to our guest and also invite him to say a word, and then we move to the third section. Professor Bugua, you're most welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. All protocols observed. I wish to introduce a little bit our guests. I can say that I have known the couple for more than 30 years when they were in secondary school. And I used to be their chaplain. And therefore, when I invited them, they had no choice but to come because of our old friendship. And when they finished school, they also decided to get married, and I officiated their wedding here in Nairobi. And Dr. Wehenya is a renal specialist. He's one of those who is able to transplant your kidney, and he does that at MPSHA and many other of the major hospitals in Nairobi. So if you have anybody who has no money, I'll force him to operate for free. His wife is also an educationist and a very good teacher, and she has served for a long time in the education sector before she got into the family business. And therefore, I am extremely humbled and very happy to welcome the fundraiser to come and say a few words. Dr. Wehenya. Asante.
Good afternoon. My Lords, the Bishop, Father Njoroge, the academic staff, the students, the Vice Chancellor. I know I am breaking the protocol, but you have to excuse me. And also my wife. Thank you so much for that kind introduction. I have known Father Stephen Bogwa for a long time. And I knew Father Bogwa when my wife was my girlfriend. And at one point we didn't have anywhere to stay, and we found him at Molo, where he used to be, St. Joseph Seminary. And I remember he accommodated us. But one interesting thing I've never told Father Stephen, he never asked, what is this relationship you, small boy and girl, you have with together? But he took us like that. On top of that, Father Stephen, I still remember a brown jacket he removed from himself and put it on me. We came from a very humble background. I remember Father Stephen paid part of my school fees when I was young. I even remember we had also social issues between our relationship and our in-laws, and he came in handy to make us more comfortable. And even as he invited me for this fundraising, I am surprised to see he's put my name on the program. I actually was not expecting that. And when he told me you are coming as a guest of honor, I said I was coming like any other guest who is coming to this fundraiser. But having said that, when it comes to charity, that is something that is in my heart. I take it as a privilege to where I stand today. I am a urologist. I am actually taking care of patients with kidney, bladder, and prostate issues. I am also teaching at the University of Nairobi, where I'm a research fellow and honorary lecturer. I am not as domed as Professor Reverend Njoroge. I'm very impressed about his CV. But just like you say when you told Cardinal Otunga that you are unwell, I'm sure it's very many years, but you have never died, you are still strong and going. And I was very impressed with the speech you gave us, the lecture you gave us today, the account. You have done a lot of research. That is not a mean work. You have done quite a bit. And I can see you as a researcher. I have always wanted to be one. So at the moment I'm running 3 grants at the University of Nairobi, Department of Surgery, at the Faculty of Health Sciences. And my main topic of research is prostate cancer. We deal with prostate cancer in the black population. We believe that the black man is bedeviled by more serious, more severe disease. And of course there is disparity in terms of treatment and also availability of drugs. And most of the treatment that we give our patients has been researched on the white man. So the other day I was asking my patients, when I asked you to be part of my research, and you hesitate, but when I tell you, let me give you an injection, and this injection was done a research in the white man, why is it that you don't refuse? So what I'm trying to say is that I'm very privileged to be here. Father Stephen, thank you so much. This is not my day. I didn't know I was going to speak. And I'm as shocked as my bishop. My bishop, I went to school in Nakuru. I have my family there. My brothers are there. That's where we met Father Stephen. And having said that, if you don't mind, I'll ask my wife to say a word so that we can also share the stress. It's not easy to stand before people and talk, but thank you so much for giving me that opportunity to come and be part of the solution, not for a problem, but for part of the life that we live. And I really admire the life Cardinal Otunga lived. It was not an easy life, I'm sure it was a life of suffering, but we shall be happy one day when we celebrate his being blessed. Thank you.
God is good. Good afternoon. All protocols observed. I am here to say thank you so much, Father Stephen, for what you have shared about us to this congregation. Yes, Father Stephen has known me since I was a very young girl, and I was not even a Catholic. He accepted me. I look at him as my dad. He has not only molded me spiritually, but he has made me a real, Catholic now. I was privileged to hear what Professor Njoroge has talked about, Cardinal Otunga, and I look forward to that time when the Catholic Church will say that he's a saint. I hope I'll be alive that day. Now, Father Stephen Bogwa allowed me to have a husband. Why? Because he has held our hands since we were very young. He did not only officiate our wedding, but he also did the same for our son recently. So he is a father to us, a grandfather to us in our family, and a spiritual father. We are here, we are humbled to be partakers of this fundraising because he also contributed in our lives. Father, thank you so much for what you did. Thank you.
Thank you so much, my friend. Now, today I was supposed to be attending the Kenya Renal Association meeting in Mombasa, which started on Wednesday, and I think it's ending tomorrow. But I just felt I had to come to this function, and so by the evening I'm leaving for Mombasa. So you can imagine where our heart is. And thank you so much, so that I don't also talk the rest of the day. Tumsifu Yesu Kristo. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We are now coming towards the tail end of our event. We have had the Mass, we've had the public lecture, which was very rich, and for some of us, after today, I guess we can be able to write theses about Cardinal Otunga and be marked and awarded degrees at Quer. We are getting into the final end, and at this juncture, I will kindly request the various persons who are leading the various divisions and departments to prepare their contributions so that when you are invited, we do not spend much time looking for you. I will be using the list of the various departments and divisions, and therefore when your division and department is invited, kindly, if you want to escort your department, make sure that you come as quickly as possible. We are, in the interest of time, we will need to move very fast, and therefore I wish to invite the chair of the steering committee to come to the front, and then I will invite our Vice Chancellor to escort our chief guest so that we can start the process of receiving the various contributions from the various departments. I therefore invite the Vice Chancellor escorting our chief guest to come to the front. We will have the session down here, and therefore when your department is called, we kindly request that you come quickly as possible. We need another microphone down here. Kindly somebody assist bring it. We also request the team, Dr. Wanaina and Dr. Kifoi, together with the team from finance, to be ready because we want to move quickly. Duke Mose to join Dr. Kiboi and Dr. Wanaina. We will start by inviting the committee.
So I invite the chief guest to come to the front. You are coming to receive the money, not to give.
Please, let's have the basket here. We'll start with a committee led by Father Bugwa, and then we'll have the Vice Chancellor's office, and then other admin offices, the DVC Academic and Registry, the